The famous races from the Far East to Europe and America of the clipper ships with their bulging sails and decks laden with cargoes of tea, silk and spices may long be over. But in Hong Kong at least, the era of the classic tall ships has been revived with the building of the brigantine Ji Feng for the China Coast Territories Outward Bound Trust, thus returning one branch of this worldwide trust to its original sailing heritage. Modern Hong Kong is a bustling commercial city, with perhaps only the Star Ferry and odd sailing junks to remind residents of more entrepot trading days. From this background, it has still become one of the world's largest container ports. The hinterland of the 404 square mile territory is rapidly being encroached upon by the demands of housing and industry. Because of this, the Outward Bound Trust of Hong Kong, which was established in 1969, recognized that the following 10 years would see an end to its training area in the new territories. A once exciting, challenging area of trees and mountains now gives way to the mechanical shovel, the cement mixer, the rock crusher and the bulldozer. On the recommendation of its executive director, the Trust decided to go back to its early tradition of the sea by building the brigantine Ji Feng. The Trust approached John Brooke, who had already designed the Spirit of Adventure, an almost identical steel ship, for the Sail Training Association of New Zealand. At his office overlooking Auckland Bridge, Brooke prepared the plans for the 132-foot brigantine. Furnaces melted the lead ingots for Ji Feng's 38-ton keel, followed by hours of hot and dangerous work before the liquid lead could be poured into the keel mould at Kong and Halverson's yard in Hong Kong. Many differing opinions were considered before it was finally decided that the vessel should be constructed of timber, and Hong Kong shipbuilders are second to none in this art. The main timbers of the vessel were made of yakel from the Philippines, whilst the planking was of two skins, the inner being mahogany and the outer skin of teak. "150 workers were employed on the construction of the vessel. Lunchtime at the shipyard saw them off to a little waterfront cafe in Hong Kong's Junk Bay, where they played traditional Chinese card games. Oh well, there always has to be a loser somewhere. Junk Bay is known as Hong Kong's graveyard of ships because it's the territory's ship-breaking yard, and the workers say figuratively that like the phoenix, it is from these ashes that Ji Feng has risen. Soon the frames of the Ji Feng did indeed rise majestically over Junk Bay. Much crucial work had to be done at this stage. Attaching the frames to the keel was no easy task. Long galvanized bolts had to be carefully fitted and fixed into place. Soon the interior lines of a truly classic ship became apparent, and it was time for the plaque-laying ceremony. Executive Director, Jack Tucker.
Now, when Outward Bound started 10 years ago, the programs were orientated to a land-based ideal, including rock climbing, mountain walking, and these provided the main challenge to the trainees on the courses. Now, some 4 years ago, the Trust foresaw that the Sai Kung Peninsula would eventually become developed. roads would be driven through it, the beaches would get crowded, and it was only a matter of time before the peninsula would not entirely suit the purposes of Outward Bound. We needed a better testing area, and this is a reality we've had to face, and if we wish Outward Bound to survive in Hong Kong and go from strength to strength, then the sensible alternative is to go to sea. Now, under this curtain is a plaque which eventually will be placed on the ship's main steering wheel for all to see. And I consider it a great honour and a privilege to be allowed to ask Peter Williams to unveil this plaque on this occasion.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased indeed to be here today to represent the stewards at the unveiling of this commemorative plaque to be installed, as we just heard, on the sail training ship Jifeng.
Jifeng continued to take shape, with the work paid for entirely by the Royal Hong Kong Jockey Club. The total cost was $1 million US. Altogether, it took 18 months to build her. That meant enduring Hong Kong's typhoon season, when torrential rain and high winds can be a headache for any boat builder. But the Hong Kong craftsmen, many of whom grew up constructing traditional Chinese sailing junks as their forefathers had before them, carried on with the task through fair weather and foul. Meanwhile, Yachtspar of New Zealand completed the biggest job they'd ever undertaken and produced the 115-foot mainmast, the foremast and spars. Always under the critical eye of designer Brooke. Back in Hong Kong, the teak deck was laid and many other finishing touches were added. The deck itself was carefully caulked. It needed to be. It would have to endure many hours of scrubbing down by Outward Bound trainees. Below decks, the joinery was completed, and then sailmakers Chung Lee took a hand.
Okay.
In keeping with the desire to build as much of the ship as possible in Hong Kong, Chung Lee were the obvious choice. This old-established loft had sail-suited such famous square riggers as Zagres and Christian Radic, and Jifeng presented no problem. The heavy engine that was to be used by the Jifeng was raised by shear legs in the traditional manner. Workmen said they preferred shear legs to cranes because cranes sometimes fell over. The engine itself is an 8-cylinder Gardiner, a brand used by Hong Kong fishing junks for many years. It was manufactured in Britain and is able to propel the Jifeng through the water at 9 knots. To supply the electricity requirements of ancillary equipment, 2 generators are used. Next, the binnacle came aboard and was checked off. The mess deck received a trial run, and carpenters completed table fiddles and a host of other interior fittings. The ship accommodates 40 trainees, and air conditioners are installed to protect the wood more than to provide comfort for students.
But you did say at the last meeting that...
We would send it.
No, I'm not taking up on that. You did say that the engine room...
Overall, the ship was fitted out and constructed to the very highest international standards, and all designs were approved by Lloyd's Register of London. Regular meetings were held with local representatives to discuss details of the on-site construction.
Oh, I see.
Finally, Lady Cater, wife of Hong Kong's Chief Secretary Sir Jack Cater, launched the Jifeng in the traditional manner with a bottle of champagne. Despite a strong crosswind, the 200-ton vessel rolled smoothly down the specially constructed slipway into her natural habitat. Still a trifle ungainly without her rigging and sails, she was nevertheless the toast of Hong Kong that day in October 1980. And the designer and boatyard officials were happy that she sat so well in the water. She was not to be bare above decks for long. The masts had arrived by ship from New Zealand and were taken alongside the Jifeng by a lighter. Now began the intricate job, using the lighter's derricks, of actually stepping the mast. Work proceeded smoothly, but it took half a day to get both masts in place. Seafarers' customs demand that a gold coin be placed at the foot of the mainmast, and this was duly done under the watchful eye of the future crew. Now her silhouette stood out properly in the evening sky, and already the first outward bound trainees were ready to go aboard to prepare the Jifeng for her maiden voyage to Manila. At last, preparations were complete, and Jifeng was ready to sail. Last-minute personal belongings were loaded, together with final food supplies. And then the most important commodity of all was taken aboard: fresh water. For this, the Jifeng and its trainees called it a well-known watering hole for junks. Pipes were extended to the shore, and the vessel's tanks were filled for the 600-mile voyage before her, across the often hazardous South China Sea to the Philippines.
Okay, well, there are a lot of problems which have arisen over the last 24 hours. I'd just like to highlight them. We mustn't put anything solid down the heads. The piping system is very restricted, and it'll just choke up the whole system, and it will be your job to clear it. Most of all, don't be seasick in the heads, because there are only 10 on board, and with 50 of you wanting to use them, you can't tie them up. So come on deck and be seasick over the lee rail if you are going to be seasick at all. Just a reminder to those who don't know about the Outward Bound School, our motto is to serve, to strive, and not to yield. Well, the last 24 hours, you've just been serving. You've been putting the ship together, you've been storing ship, you've been cleaning it, you've just been generally working up for this intended voyage of over 1,200 miles. We're now about to strive to learn to sail. Amongst us we have some quite experienced yachtsmen, and I'm sure that we'll make a very good crew. We've certainly got plenty of willingness. I'm absolutely delighted with the enthusiasm that I've seen so far. When you hear the rapid ringing of the bell and constant short blasts on the foghorn, come up on deck with your life jacket and stand by these stations. We may at times have an all-hands-on-deck situation. This is not the same thing as a muster or a fire alarm. What this means is that in order to keep the ship under control, perhaps there's an approaching squall, we need everybody up here to get sails down, to trim sails, to do various other tasks. And when we say all hands on deck, it means everybody, including the cook. You just drop whatever you're doing and just come straight up. If we don't do that, we may run into problems. Final thing, I hope you all have a very enjoyable voyage.
Before you turn up on a winch, if you are unsure about which way to put the turns on, just turn it first, okay? And only go one way. And that's the way that you put the turn on. When we're hoisting the sails, sheeting them in, hoist the sails right to the top by hand. We can't get them any further by hand. Then we put a turn on the wind. Take down all the slack, put another turn on. When we put the other turn on, don't want to see any of this stuff. Okay? If we're in a blow, you start moving your fingers in around the turns, you're going to lose a finger. Puts blood all over the deck. Hell of a job to clean up.
Going aloft on a brigantine is a big step for most novice recruits, and they take it very cautiously. Once up on the yard arms, securely hooked on, they set the square sails. And from the deck below, the fore and aft sails are hoisted. In a light breeze, the Ji-Fung, under sail for the first time, makes her way gracefully out of Hong Kong harbour. The ship gently heels as the helm responds to the quartermaster's touch. Outward Bound's Vice President Ronnie Ross waves the Ji-Fung farewell, and she is now on her own. Trainees soon become accustomed to their tasks. Watches are divided into 3, and all hands help out with the many routine chores, including cleaning and galley duties. A paid cook supervises the meals on board. Oxtail stew is today's menu. But the trainees have to peel the spuds. In the chart room, Captain Peter Gasson carefully plots the ship's course, aided by the latest navigational facilities, such as satellite navigators and weather printouts. Preparatory training is held ashore before Outward Bound trainees are subjected to the hazards of the sea. This supplements Outward Bound's land-based activities, and these skills will be used later in the course when the trainees go ashore for expeditions. Almost all Outward Bound schools use ropes courses, and in Hong Kong's case, the purpose is not to accustom the trainees to life aboard the ship, but, as in other schools, to develop confidence and agility to prepare for challenges ahead. Aboard ship, safety harnesses are issued to all crew. The complex rigging is explored, and the many tasks that the Outward Bound trainees will have to undertake are gone over before anchor is weighed. That includes swabbing down the decks, finding balance on the rigging, and hoisting sails. Vigorous early morning exercises on deck are followed by a brisk shower and rub down once the Ji-Fung gets underway. And then it's down to the real business of managing a ship at sea in all its facets. Many of the courses are co-educational, with the girls taking their share of all duties. A brisk breeze carries the Ji-Fung across the South China Sea to the northern Philippine island of Luzon. On every voyage, Ji-Fung carries out a full Outward Bound training schedule, which includes canoeing, small boat sailing, and periods ashore on land expeditions. Back in Hong Kong, the Jifeng has courses for younger children during the typhoon season, when it is more prudent to stay nearer home. Now they literally learn the ropes. It seems pretty tough doing jobs that even adults find difficult to manage, but then boys and girls, like men, must go down to the sea.
Release the outer jib sheet!
Hoisting sails is a hard grind, particularly if the foresail sheet gets caught round something. But with a good team effort, the Jifeng finally gets underway. Here she cruises among Hong Kong's many islands. And fortunately, instructors are close at hand to help with the winches. It's a dream passage for many a youngster. Rejoining the maiden voyage, manned by adults, Jifeng gets a taste of real weather, and during lunch the trainees feel the seas getting up.
Hong Kong radio, Hong Kong radio, Hong Kong radio. This is sailing ship Jifeng, sailing ship Jifeng. Victor Romeo Foxtrot Charlie, Victor Romeo Foxtrot Charlie. Calling on 6215.5, listening 6521.9. You read, over.
Jifeng. This is Hong Kong radio, receiving you loud and clear. Weather report. Northeast, course 8. South of Brattas Reef. Moderate seas becoming rough.
The captain decides that the sails must be reduced, and all hands are called on deck. As the wind increases, everybody works to ensure the brigantine is not overpressed. Still more sail has to come down, and the crew is kept busy preparing the ship for the storm, which is not far ahead. One crew member doesn't like it at all. As the swells increase, the Jifeng is clearly running into the predicted gale. Forward lookout confirms that white water is showing ahead. Suddenly it hits, and the knot meter shows a steady 45 knots on the beam. Heavy seas begin pounding the brigantine, but with properly trimmed sail, she's more than sturdy enough to handle them. Decks are awash, and it's quite a relief to come off watch. Under these conditions, all hands are fully occupied, with little time to glance at a passing freighter. The Jifeng hounds on towards the Philippines, and the outward-bound sailors get used to the rough weather. Gradually the storm subsides, the seas become calmer, and in the lee of northern Luzon Island, the crew has a welcome chance to contemplate a typical Philippine sunset. Dinner is served, and soon afterwards the last night watch of the voyage begins, bringing the Jifeng and its crew into a safe tropical anchorage. Even the captain can have a shower, now fresh water is at hand. The return voyage to Hong Kong is always memorable, but the first was especially so. The Jifeng sailed up the famous harbour, and her crew manned the yards and ratlins in traditional formal salute to the Royal Naval Base at Tamar, which received her on her return. It was a spectacular sight as she came into dock, and not every vessel receives the honour of a salute from the fireboat Alexander Grantham. And at the quayside to welcome her were Hong Kong's governor, Sir Murray MacLehose, and Tamar's captain-in-chief, Andrew Waugh. Sir Murray, a keen sailor himself, was most interested to hear details of the voyage from the crew and Captain Gasson. But Jifeng was not built to be at dockside. Soon she was off once more, sails hoisted, leaning gently in the wind, cutting through the greenish waters of the South China Sea. A remarkable ship, a remarkable endeavour, and a remarkable enterprise for Hong Kong's outward-bound trust, which, with foresight, has shown that character training, self-reliance, and the outward-bound spirit can still be engendered in the classic manner of men before the mast on great sailing ships.